NBN3 Archives by Dr. Anne Hardy. Dr. Hardy talks about the Channel 3 digitisation project, a 10-year collaboration between the University of Newcastle Library and NBN Television. Dr. Anne Hardy coordinates the GlamX Living Histories Digitisation Lab at the University of Newcastle, Australia. In this role, she supervises students and volunteers, providing hands-on experience across the GLAM sector, including conservation, digitisation and digital heritage. She also leads the long-running Hunter Living Histories initiative, working in partnership with local communities on heritage projects and collaborating with a wide range of stakeholders, including Indigenous communities, to strengthen and preserve regional cultural knowledge. The Channel 3 digitisation project is a decade-long collaboration between the University of Newcastle Library and NBN Television, focused on preserving at-risk audiovisual media and documents to ensure this vital cultural history is safeguarded for future generations.
The first thing I would like to do is to acknowledge that we are meeting on traditional lands and forgotten people, the traditional custodians of this area. I would like to pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to those in the rooms and those on Zoom. Welcome especially to Dr. Anne Hardy, who is going to tell us all about the digitisation of the NBN3 archives. Now, NBN3, since it began in 1962, has collected, as you would imagine, a huge number of wonderful images and video clips about our region. And it needs to be digitised so that it doesn't get lost somewhere along the line. And for about 10 years, I believe, people have been working extremely hard to digitise these videos so that they are not lost to us. Anne's in charge of the GlamX, so how we pronounce it, yes. Hunter Living Histories Digitisation Lab at the University of Newcastle, where she supervises students and volunteers. And we know Anne very well, so I probably don't need to give you too much extra information. There was quite a bit more information in your newsletter if you'd like to read up on exactly what Anne does at the university. So welcome, Anne. I'll step aside and welcome you.
Yes, so thank you, Mel, and for the kind invitation to come and share the NBN Television digitisation project we've been working on. Some of you may recall this Channel 3 logo back in the day. If you grew up in Newcastle, the Hunter region, part of their archive includes a lot of logos and publications and media. So what I'm going to talk about today is the archive itself, what's contained in the archive. It's mainly news material, and it's all being done at the University of Newcastle. As Mel said, I coordinate the GlamX Lab, and it's part of the community library where students, community, we have a lot of volunteers come and have been helping us with the project. So our key contributors, and I'll put a photo of Mr. Philip Lloyd, who's an adjunct lecturer at the University of Newcastle. He used to work at NBN Television. He also worked in media at the University of Newcastle. But he's the one that actually kicked off this project over 10 years ago. So if it wasn't for Phil, we certainly don't think we would have even started or got as much content digitised. We also work with former television industry professionals, so people that used to work for NBN Television who are retired, and it's legacy material that they've helped create, so they're really passionate about having it conserved. like I said, community, students, the University of Newcastle has been a big supporter, as well as local studies, library, council library in Newcastle, where a lot of the film is stored. So this is a short piece of example of the early beginnings of the station in 1962. As you can see, it represents footage relating to the port facilities, export, accidents, rail transport, dignitaries, events, colour, started in 1975, so we've got a lot of colour, content, infrastructure, dockyard.
These oat milkshakes are the best in Australia.
They come across this footage. It's randomly turned up in the news footage. He's obviously here, probably when he was the leader of the unions. Anyhow, he's turned up at Oak, and that's just a nice little bit of footage there. So Mosby Crescent, it's the story of where television in Newcastle began. It was a purpose-built facility that had several really large television studios that would serve the region for well over 60 years. So March 1962...
I'm very pleased to have the opportunity of speaking to you on this important occasion, the inauguration of a television service in the Newcastle area by station NBN Channel 3. I wish the station well, and I am confident that it will bring to you all many years of entertainment and pleasure.
So we've got broadcasts from like the very first day. So we've had like local people able to watch local entertainment, sports, documentaries, seeing the daily happenings for themselves, their neighbours, through news and called roving on. Newcastle had the very first 1 hour news service in Australia, which continues today. Most local programs were recorded on various formats of videotape. In the early days, videotape was very expensive, so often programs were recorded over, unfortunately. Romper Room was also never kept. So if anyone that's got any Romper Room videos out there. It's interesting with the 1 hour news, it's quite different to capital cities that they might have competitions, so there's 2 or 3 stations with only half-hour news segments. The feedback that we've had from researchers into Newcastle and the Hunter is that because it is an hour length, there's actually quite a lot of information packed in. So, you know, they're sort of getting more information than if they were looking at a national story through a capital city. So fast forward to March 1962 when the local television arrived in Newcastle. Like I said, it had the daily news. It was very innovative, presented stories of people, places and events, both in Newcastle and more widely around the Hunter region. You may recognise, if you sort of be part of the Newcastle community, you may recognise some of the people in the footage. So we had like Des Hart, who was the early weather meteorologist, and apparently that was quite revolutionary for a television station to employ a trained professional meteorologist. And I know he published a book that was sort of well used, and a lot of people learned a lot about weather. I put this photo up of Barry Howard. So Barry was employed at what they refer to as stringers. So with roving eye, it was similar to a news program, but it was captured pretty much off the cuff. It wasn't news that was playing, well, not that news was playing, but these camera operators had day jobs. So Barry was a coal miner, lived up Cessnock. He had a camera, he had skills in how to shoot and capture stories. So the stringers that were around the region would capture accidents in mines, things that happened that they knew they could get someone from Newcastle out in the region. So we've done a lovely interview with Barry just to capture his profession at the time and his contribution. So we'll just jump back to 1950s, when the Newcastle Council decided to build in the city across the park, Civic Park, the cultural centre to commemorate World War II. So it's a centre that would provide a home for knowledge, music, arts, history and archives. It was at a time where a lot of the historic documents that we house were either sort of kept locally with historic associations, societies if they were around, or they were sent down to the State Library, the Mitchell Library in Sydney. So our forefathers, I guess, wanted to retain our history here, and the storage floors in the basement of this building is where a lot of the archival material relating to this television archive is held. So in 1965, all the news film reels were placed in the storage area of the Cultural Centre, and it continued to be added to up to 1983, when there was that conversion from film to magnetic tape, or most of us know as videotape. So it's housed there. Now, this chart, you're not going to be able to read the fine print, but it's just to show the diversity of like the different, I guess, series or programs within the archive. So the news content alone is really large, but yeah, there's just quite a different diversity of smaller programs, and they range in all different sizes, from, you know, tens to hundreds and then thousands of files. Now, the folder containing the largest amount of content in the archive, like I said, is the news files. So there's over 20,000 news files since 1962, and that's up to 2018.
On the beach, a bit north of Stockton, and a very dirty beach it is too. Boat number 2 from the ill-fated Cygna, Norwegian vessel that was due to load in Newcastle. Now she'll never make Newcastle. She lies, broken backed, beyond all hope of salvage, a mere 100 yards off the shore. It looks close enough to walk aboard, but anybody trying that boiling surf would quickly find it otherwise.
Well, it's been an amazing day here in Newcastle. Behind me on Nobby's Beach lies the wreck of the Pasha Bolka. She ran aground this morning. Her crew has since been airlifted off as part of an amazing rescue operation, and tonight there's the real possibility she could break up and spill oil onto the beach. It's a sight to strike fear into the heart of every mariner and fascination for those ashore. The Panama-registered Pasha Bolka was due into Newcastle Harbour next week to load coal. Today she came early, but the Pasha Bolka couldn't get away. When these big ships don't have a cargo, they carry water ballast. And what we believe has happened is that this ship has inadvertently let go its water ballast, making it too high in the water for its propeller to work properly, and so it couldn't get out to sea to safer waters.
So I guess that's just an example of similar theme, disaster shipwrecks, different formats. So that early one would have been film, technology different. Today be even different to the Pasha Bolka, that we'd be able to manage probably drones over, but just represents, yeah, just the difference in formats, how it's shot, how it's created, and the technology behind it is completely different. So in the 1970s and 80s, the region was considered a microcosm of Australia at large. So Newcastle was quite often used to test new products on the market, different campaigns. So for that region, there was a lot happening in terms of testing, and a lot of that innovation is sort of captured within the television archive. As well. Here, every year for the past 64 years, NBN has documented the life and times of this microcosm of Newcastle and the Hunter region. And here you can see some footage of industry, shipbuilding industry that was flourished up around Hexham and the Dockyard area. So the videotape story files alone contain 2,873 hours of daily history of the region, held at the time at Mosborough present. And the first part of the project was to just concentrate on digitising anything on magnetic tape. Magnetic tape is considered an at-risk format, so the National Film and Sound Archive issued started a campaign probably close to 10 years ago called Deadline 2025, just saying anything on magnetic tape, so whether it's audio, video, target getting that digitised first, because it's not going to have a long shelf life. So that's what the team targeted first.
All the programs from the 70s and 80s recorded on videotapes are slowly vanishing due to the tape itself reacting with the air. In a few more years, all these early videos would have been unplayable.
The most important thing at this point in time was to actually get it off those tapes onto some sort of medium where it could be saved and wouldn't deteriorate further.
Rompa-bumpa-stompa-boo, tell me, tell me, tell me do. Please, magic mirror, tell me today, did all my friends have fun at play?
So by 2012, all the videotape programs that still survived had been digitised. Volunteers then turned their attention to the daunting task of digitising all the video news stories that had been telecast from 1982 to 2018.
With videotape, everything has to be done in real time. If you've got 2 hours worth of tape, it takes at least 2 hours. You can't speed it up. So if you imagine news, for instance, 50 years of news material took God knows how many hours to show. It takes that many hours to recapture.
That's 14 years though, the story. It just shows how it's taken a long time. Then in 2017, NBN announced it would move from Mosborough Crest in the large studio's purpose-built facility. And that's when this project moved to the library, the University Library, and the collaboration began. So with negotiations, Johnny DeGravio, the archivist of the university, was in talks with Phil, the guys at NBN Television, and then management at the university. We were really fortunate to be able to then build some space into the newly established Glamex lab that opened in 2018. So the timing was perfect because they needed a home and we could see how much work they'd already done and how it really needed to continue and what a valuable archive it was to not get it done for future generations. So this is just a 3D of the Glamex lab. So GLAM stands for Galleries, Libraries, Archives and Museums. So as I said before, we host students, we host volunteers, and there's other digitisation projects that happen. So it's only one room within the lab that does the television digitising, but we have students working on oral history projects, collaborating with other organisations to help digitise their archive. And yeah, so the university now offers students 140-hour placement. So regardless of what course they're enrolled in, they can come and offer their time. They can work with the team and just build up some skills, what we call GLAM sector skills. So they can get some practical hands-on experience in the lab. So this is the specific space that the volunteers are working. And in this space, they've been able to digitise, like I said, the magnetic tape. The variety of magnetic tapes include BVU tapes, which were from 1982 to 89. beta cams from 1986 to 1999, and then DV cam tapes from 1999 to 2019. They probably all sound pretty nondescript, but the issue is with each change in format, you need a particular machine to be able to play and then digitise it. So the value of having people working on the project that know the machines, help create the material, is totally invaluable to the project. So by June 2021, there was a total of 3,699 hours that had been digitised, and that was contained in that was 112,000 local stories that have been digitised. So the methodology they took, firstly, was to digitise in 10 increments. So we had, for any commemoration, say for next year, it would be like targeting 87, 97, 2007. So we're sort of doing it in those increments. And then it meant we were on the front foot for if anyone requested footage that they wanted to share. And then we would also target specific years if we were requested for whatever researchers or documentary makers. So that was just the deadline 2025 that the guys met by 2.5 years. So they had everything digitised on magnetic tape by the end of 2021. And it was also just in time for the university's 60th anniversary, so we could help sort of prepare and find content relating to the university's history, the station's history, sorry. In 2022 was the 60 years of NBN television. Last year was the university's 60th, so we were able to use content there as well. So there's a plethora of programs, children's, women's, sporting, variety. I don't know if people remembered Nat Jeffrey's morning show. Just trying to think what it was called. But we've got hours and hours of that. And they're really lengthy interviews with medical professionals, inventors. It's just, so that's still to go up online, but there's over 90 local documentaries, all the content from 82 to 2018 is now being digitised. So one major, that's just a breakdown of the hours that have been captured. And now the major task remains to complete digitising the first 20 years of the news stories that were captured on 16mm film. So we've gone backwards. We've done like the later magnetic tape, but now we're going back to the film. It wasn't considered at risk as much as the magnetic tape. This just shows like the green squares show what's already been digitised. The white ones is still what is yet to be done. So there's still quite a bit. So today in 2026, the film still at local studies in Langley Street. It's still in good condition. The team's currently focused on digitising the film formats on a film digitising system that the team and the volunteers have built from scratch. So this is old machines, purchasing second-hand parts, mainly off eBay, Marketplace. It's not new equipment that you can just purchase. And we've managed to get the 16mm film digitising system up and running. We also have a backup, but as I said before, it's the value of the volunteers that have been technicians, have worked in the television industry. They're quite incredible, the knowledge that they hold to be able to fix. So this is just a quick video where Phil describes the lab.
Welcome to the audiovisual area of the GlamX lab.
This is an area that's chock full of equipment, all aimed at digitising media, videotape, film and other items into files on computer. Over in this part of the lab we have our videotape recording and audio cassette and audio reel-to-reel recording. We have virtually every kind of cassette-based videotape system here, so that we can digitise a whole range of material into files that are then held on computer. So this videotape equipment only takes up a small part of the room. The largest part of the room is taken up with the film capturing equipment. At the front of the room here we have a projector-based system for capturing 8mm and Super 8 film into the computer over there. The rest of our movement down here is all of the 16mm equipment, because the 16mm takes a lot more involvement to capture the films. It starts here at a film bench, a film handling bench, which has rewind arms, a viewer, a whole lot of reels, and the most lengthy part of the process takes place here, where we have to prepare the films. We can actually use a motorised viewer as well. This is a Steenbeck, and this allows us to look at the films and listen to the sound if we need to as well, to establish whether it's important and needs extra work or not. Once the film's been prepared here, it travels up onto our 16mm capture system. Again, this is a projector-based system similar to the 8mm, where we put the 16mm films on the projector, they're picked up with a camera, and they come back to the computer here where we've captured them. They then travel, once they're captured, they travel across to another setup where we have an editing setup that allows us to manipulate the film, because the film's been captured in reverse and we have to adjust the various colour or intensity of the image. So that's all done in an editing program on a computer here and on a computer over here, which allows us to actually prepare the film files so they can go onto the university servers. So there you have the AV area of the GLAMEX lab. It's organised around the digitisation of various forms of media into computer files for long-term storage into the future.
So as you can see, there's quite a few steps in the process. It's quite a small area, so it's a bit of a tight sort of fit when there's 3 or 4 people in there. But yeah, they sort of work on different parts of the project, so they sort of build specialist skills, and it's like a production line. So we have volunteers that are preparing the film, checking the splices, just making sure that it's all in good condition before they actually start the digitising. The splice can be up to 60 years old, so the splices were put together often to meet a deadline to be on the news. So yeah, for them to be just sitting in boxes for 20 years, everything needs to be checked and double checked. And from there, this is Mark Rigby, one of our volunteers, who comes in weekly and is part of the team. That's what one of the slices looks like. The projector here is just like simple. It's got a lamp behind it. They're able to actually view, just see whether it's something that is worth digitising. So it sort of, again, goes through a few processes to capture what's on it. So if it's all going to be scenes of water and nothing else, we'll put that aside. We wouldn't prioritise it, but it's sort of part of this early process that often things are flagged as important or something significant. So then the volunteers also document the date and information of each story and the condition of the film. So all that's documented and goes back with the film when it's returned to local studies at Newcastle. Here's Terry Bush, and he's cleaning, ready to digitise. The film's then digitised and more information about the story, and it's like another pair of eyes. So with the guys who work in the lab, some of them were camera operators, they might have been out shooting the film. whatever story it was. So they've actually got quite a good recollection, and the vision of often is the prompt they need. But having multiple people look at a story, look at some film, means we're able to create a lot of metadata and description. And our system records the image horizontally, reversed. So the whole file has to be reversed after it's been captured. The digitised master file is then uncompressed. So we have like a master file that's archived, and we call it a preservation file, and that it won't be touched. Once it's converted to an MP4, that will be just put in a server, and it won't be touched. So that will be our master file. And then the MP4 copy, just the video file of each reel, together with a cue sheet of whatever information someone's just written, might be just one sentence or a few words on each story, goes then off-site to volunteers, who then can place more information into the master file about each story. So a lot of these stories from the 60s, we have no audio, so the vision is important, of course, but getting that information from the volunteers is really the valuable part of this project, alongside the digitisation. If this project was put off for another 20 years, the people around that created it may not be around. So here we've got Mary Body. So Mary was a reporter for NBN back in the 70s and 80s. So again, she's someone that was out in the field reporting. She features in a lot of stories, so she's an ideal person to capture all that information. This is an example of adding keywords to each story, just to enhance searchability. So the record has start time and finish time. Every story in the file has to be easily found. So there's a lot of work that's been done manually. And I know AI is supposed to be able to do all this fancy stuff, but I'm still not convinced that what these guys are doing with the intimate knowledge they have of the stories is being captured by AI. So they're happy to do it. It's valuable. It's already valuable for us because we can start searching content when people are requesting it. So here, the path that each film takes from start to finish is through the process of digitisation is about 30 minutes. Each reel is about 30 minutes long. If there's no problems along the way, each reel will pass through the hands of 4 volunteers and take about 5 hours in total to make that journey. So 5 hours for one reel of film, and that's without any hiccups. So since the beginning of the journey of news film digitisation in 2018, we've had to cope with more than a few hiccups. COVID, of course, it did allow some of our volunteers to continue on digitising the video tapes because they took machines home and were able just to keep doing them in real time at home. But yeah, COVID still had a lot of disruptions for us. Prolonged contractual negotiations for Channel 9. The outcome, we're really happy with it. It's fantastic. I've been told by like researchers and academics in the field of media that it's really unusual for collaboration with a commercial TV station around digitisation. So public broadcasters, they often collaborate to digitise their archive, but a commercial station is quite different. So the negotiations went on until probably 2023. So the digitisation had always was happening anyway. It wasn't that contract, it wasn't an agreement, wasn't formalised till during COVID. Our volunteers, of course, the hiccups is always, if something breaks down, we've got to source and find equipment to make sure that everything's working reliably. And then, of course, our volunteers have got a life, as many of you who volunteer know. You've got a life, you don't want to spend all your time sort of working and digitising one project. So getting that balance and having multiple people working a project, so it's not too overwhelming for 2 or 3 people. So regardless of the setbacks, since starting, they've digitised 658 reels of film. So it's a lot of hours, a lot of commitment. This is an image of some of our valued volunteers. Like I said, a lot of them worked in the industry. They sort of worked different hours. Some come in, some volunteer at home, but they're all got their own specific skills and background. So while the 16mm film has survived, there's still a major problem with most of the reels not having any scripts. So like I said, a lot of them are audio, and some of them with audio do have cards and scripts that will read live to air. So they're valuable. We're able to digitise those, transcribe them, and have that as part of the metadata for what we're digitising. Not all of them have that, so that is one of our biggest challenges is now just how to create the information and make sure that we make the archive as rich as possible. So today we have an agreement in place with Channel 9 and the University Special Collections that anything that's been digitised can be made available on a YouTube channel. So the library's got its own YouTube channel, and we have got the majority of the news archive on videotape up on our YouTube channel. Oh, yep, here we go. So that means there's a lot of files. We've got the master file, we've got the converter file. So part of the university's commitment is to archive on their servers everything that's been created, so that it's some longevity. Now, Phil, over the years has, like I said, we've hosted working with grade learning students to work on this specific archive, learn skills. There was one project that they worked on, and it related to the 1970 news, black and white news stories. So in 1970, there was the vision, there was a script that was read live to air. Apparently news stories have music, which seems a little bit unusual. We don't have music today. The students' project was to reassemble a news story. We got Raiden in to do the voiceovers, to read the script. So the students had to recreate it. So we had all the information, original archival document around how to recreate it, and they had to put in the titles, the music, and put it together. So this was just before the first lockdown in COVID. So they were students were coming into the lab, they were learning how to find the files, and then all of a sudden they had to work from home. But NBN did
University of Newcastle students are taking a step back in time to show us how the Hunter came to be what it is today.
Using modern technology to digitise film from decades past, the University of Newcastle is bringing the region's history to life as part of a project years in the making.
Chance to go in the Glam Lab, speak to Anne, see some people from NBN and put together a really cool story and see all these really great historical footage and sounds were really cool.
Former presenter Ray Deneen come in and read some of the historic scripts.
Drinkers fleeing the Adamstown Hotel early this afternoon were treated to a grandstand seat for the most spectacular fire in Newcastle for some time. A fire broke out in a deserted two-storey building in Brunker Road, one of the oldest in Adamstown, and it was tinder dry. Within minutes, flames were belching out over the main thoroughfare, and the hotel on one side and a hairdressing salon on the other were being scorched.
Interesting looking at the way things are written then and how it's still done now.
So the students got a lot out of it. It was like a full story, like a full circle that we'd had the footage sitting on the servers. You look at like fire in Adamstown without any description. So they were able to recreate, I think it was close to 100 stories. We had to make sure when they were then uploaded to YouTube that we had that description around what the students had done, so that people didn't look at it in 20 years' time and think that was the original story from 1970. So all that description was sort of put there with the project as well. And that was, yeah, a good experience then before they sort of went into lockdown. So on a global scale, this project has really been quite exciting. Like I said, it's accessible on YouTube. We had worked with a company called Linus Wizard during COVID, and they created a fantastic search tool that I know Jude has used. Was only available to students and to staff, and it was really clever technology in that we sort of dumped 5,000 video files in what they call an AWS bucket. The technology works in that it breaks one file into 5,000. You put a search term, say for Ties Hill, it would search all the audio of that whole entire archive and bring up snippets of where the mention of Ties Hill. And then it would also run an AI through the signage of anything in the background. And so it was very innovative. Unfortunately, the company has just been sold on the stock market. And I looked online last week and it's disappeared. So we have the university IT department looking into where's it gone, can we create something for ourselves? But it actually reduced time by, I reckon, tenfold in terms of searchability. You were lucky, Jude, finding all those ballet dancers. So yeah, that's still our mission, is we can digitise everything, we can have it on YouTube, but it's also got to be searchable. And at the moment, so being able to profile the digitisation project itself at two international conferences. So there's one last year in Bologna in Italy, and one the year before in Valencia, Spain. So there's a whole body of researchers that are, interested in particularly television archives. And so the unique thing is that nearly all of this archive is on the way of being digitised, but compared to a lot of other institutions, they're still on the back foot in terms of trying to meet that 2025 deadline, which is gone. But this archive's quite intact, and I think for the future, it's certainly going to become more valuable and significant over time because of that change from analogue to digital. Us as a generation not probably archiving enough of what's created digitally. So people will be going back to an authentic archive. And now with AI, there's ways of getting certification, just something that's sitting in digital form. So in the future, people will look at it and they'll know that it's authentic, it's been digitised without any AI manipulation. So it's an ongoing project. We've got the Rotary behind us and the Friends of the University that have donated quite a bit of money. So we're looking at buying purpose-built new digitiser for the next generation of students. So look, I hope you found it interesting. If you want to find out more, just let me know. I can sort of send Mel any any links. This was an exhibition we had a couple of years ago, and it's been 3D scanned and is online. And then there's the photographic archive that's part of it as well, but we haven't even touched. That's a change of just yeah, ensuring that anything on film and magnetic tape is going to be preserved. So thank you very much. Thank you.